Welcome back to the City Ramble. Making sure, if you can, hit the subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening. Final episode of 5 this week. So it's been a busy week and it's only going to get busier. So make sure you are sticking around for plenty of episodes. Louis, okay, Leeds are bad. The table tells us that. Some of the players tell us that. But, of course, it is still a Premier League match and one where City, especially after the last couple of results, can't afford not to win. Obviously, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there will be changes to the starting 11 from the Leverkusen game. I think most people can, probably confidently predict that. Haaland will come back in, I assume. Donnarumma will come back in. Diaz will come back in. You imagine Nico Gonzalez stays there. Otherwise, for you, who are you looking at in terms of players that you would like to either keep in that starting 11 or possibly change for this game against Leeds?
I do think it kind of picks itself, to be honest. If it was me, I'd go Donnarumma, Nunes, Diaz, Gvardiol, O'Reilly, Gonzalez, Bernardo, Foden, Cherki, Haaland, and Doku. I think that team played really well against Liverpool. I think Doku's made his mark now, and I think he's got that left winger spot wrapped up. And yeah, I think we just need to kind of get back to that after the Leverkusen game. I think a lot of the lads who played against Leverkusen will be low on confidence now, and Leeds is a must-win now. However, whichever way you want to spin it, it's a must-win. Whether it's confidence or momentum, we need to win this game. And to be honest, a convincing result would be ideal as well, because I won't be happy with a 1-0. I'm not going to lie. I do want I want a solid, convincing result. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Louis makes a good point there, Adam, doesn't he? And I totally agree in the sense that, had City got past Leverkusen, however, if they'd have won the game, got 3 points, and you go into this Leeds match and, maybe they win 1-0, 2-0, whatever, we'll take stuff away from it. But you say in this current period, wins are wins, City are ticking over, back on the winning sort of streak. But I think Guardiola's kind of made his bed a little bit with that decision, and he more than anyone, and I'm not even for a second flirting with the idea of potential ramifications, losing his job, whatever. That's obviously not ever going to creep into the conversation as far as I'm concerned. But I think in just terms of maybe clawing back any sort of dignity from the midweek fixture, I feel like it does need to be a really solid, dominant, barely any mistakes performance. I don't know if you could necessarily stick a scoreline on it, because City might be worthy of a 5-0 win but only score 2 goals or whatever. The keeper might have a worldie, whatever. But I feel like if we're going away from it and it's a scrappy 1-0 or 2-0, then you go back to Tuesday's lineup and you go, what was the point?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think you're right. It's not necessarily about a scoreline, but it's about the manner in which you win. It could be 2-0. You think back to that. I think it was was it the treble season or the year after, was City won 2-0 at Old Trafford, but it could have been about 7-0.
Yeah.
So yeah,
season
I mean,
before, I think 21,
yeah,
because Ronaldo was still there, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was. So I think yes, it aesthetically must please us, I suppose, that it looks good, they're in control. It's a clean performance, somewhat mistake-free. The only thing that's kind of nagging at me in the back of my mind is, if you look, I think we have to start looking ahead now. Between this game against Leeds on the 29th of November and you look ahead to just the 14th of December, you play 5 games, and 2 of those are, not that I'm remotely comparing these trips, but a trip to the Bernabeu and a trip to Selhurst Park, which both of those are a bit of a nightmare at the moment. I mean, one of them's always a nightmare, but Palace at home have been really good this year.
I didn't actually know which one you meant there. Is Real Madrid always the nightmare, or is Selhurst Park always the nightmare?
True. So I would, on terms of team selection, I think if this were FIFA or Football Manager, I'd just say roll out the 11 that we've seen on a weekly basis that have gathered all this momentum that we have had this season. We've seen the most amount of sort of positive signs from. But like I said earlier, I think you're going to have to sort of pick and choose your moments to roll out those same 11 players, because you can't do that from here on out unless you just run them into the ground by the new year. So like I said, I don't.
Who
think
are
it
the
would-
changes then? Who retains the positions from that midweek fixture?
Well, that's the thing. When I it's very easy for me when I look at that team that played against Leverkusen. There's very clearly players who were in for rotation's sake, and there was very clearly players who I think are on the list of need to be played into form because they are one of the first 2 or 3 names off the bench or potentially in pole position for making key Premier League starts or Champions League starts down the road. I think those players that have to be played into form because they will contribute at some point, probably Tijani Reinders, Omar Marmoush, John Stones. I don't know. John Stones is kind of an enigma because he barely plays for City these days. He plays for England every time they play. Maybe Ryan Ait-Nouri. I don't know. The list actually dwindles every time I look at it. Just I don't know if it's recency bias from that Leverkusen game, but the list gets shorter and shorter every time I look at it now.
But I think it not to sort of go over what we've spent the last 3 days screaming into a void about, but it illustrates just how even stranger that decision was because if you do 50-50 rotation with those players, you get to this weekend and you go, okay, fair enough. You know, maybe Ait-Nouri didn't play or maybe Reinders didn't play and you expect them to come in for a player who played in midweek. But like you sat at a situation now where you're going, you probably do need to maybe change it again to keep that sort of keep the fresh legs rolling over because Fulham is in midweek and then it's Sunderland, which promoted team, but obviously we know this season they've been really good. You just sat there going like, who? Because I think Louis, you said it before, like, you know, that confidence is going to be in the drain. So Adam, I don't know.
I think you just kind of have to like throw something at the wall here and hope it sticks because you can't play those same 11 players every week or every 3 days. So I think if you look at the 3 games in this week, like you mentioned, Leeds at home, Fulham away, and then Sunderland at home, this is probably the game of those 3 to make a little bit of changes. So I'll stick my neck out and say Tijani Reinders, Ryan Ait-Nouri, and I don't know.
Don't say his name, man. Don't say his name. I can't do it again. Do it again.
Okay, here's the thing, right? We have this conversation. When I am making a prediction here. It's not my desire. I'm making a prediction what I think Pep Guardiola might do. I think Savinho plays again.
He can't play again.
But here's my thing. Okay, so let me ask you this: would you rather have Oscar Bob? And that's not supposed to be a trick question.
I don't think I'd want both, man. I don't want any.
No, but if it's Savinho or Bob, I'm taking Bob. But the thing is that's troubling me with Savinho is and Pep is Pep's clearly seen something in him. So it's like we kept hold of him when Spurs came in for him, and now Pep seems to like he really likes this guy. So I trust Pep, and I trust that Savinho will come good. If Pep ends up chucking him in against Leeds, that's a problem though. That is a problem. Whether Savinho will come good, like, you know, I don't know, further on in the season or whatever. He's still a young lad. He very well could do, but if he starts against Leeds, then there's questions need to be asked because that's
my only issue with this whole conversation is if not now, when. That's basically it, because you're basically from now until the new year, you're playing every 72 hours. So like these players, not that I am happy about it, these players have to play. It's
Savinho did play
basically
and
that
has
simple.
played and has been rubbish.
And
Well,
maybe
I
because he played 90 minutes in the week, maybe
You think Bob plays, Louis?
No, I don't think
possibly?
he plays against Leeds, but I think if he has to rotate, I think it's Bob. Like I am a big fan of Oscar Bob. He's not impressed in the past couple of games he's played and stuff, but I think the ability is very clearly there. His close control, the ball seems to just stick to his feet, and he can get past players, you know, when he's on form. And I think for me, I've just seen something more special in him than I have Savinho if we're comparing the two. So if it was
maybe none of them play. I mean, maybe it's like you stick another midfielder in there, and that right wing position becomes.
We did see Bernardo
Silva. I mean, actually, I don't think it would be remotely surprising if all of Bernardo Silva, Nico Gonzalez, Phil Foden, and Tijani Reinders play.
Yeah, I could see that.
And the only two legitimate attackers are Jeremy Doku and Erling Haaland. In fact, that's probably what I'd stick my neck out and say ends up happening.
Yeah.
I think it probably
But then
Home to
again,
Leeds though is a bit of a
yeah. But then again, we have to come back to the fact that you're going to London 72 hours later, and then back home, and then like. That's why
the great man
I
once
think
said it.
one of
If
them-
you are tired, fuck you. You know, they're his words.
It's
his
great
words.
that he said that. That was great content, but that's not the case because we've seen through his entire City tenure that this time of year he's going to rotate because he has to get through this period. But then again, we've never had. It's probably the poorest squad apart from last season that he's had at City, or maybe his first year. So. I don't know.
Let me. Yeah, I will say, I want to. You know, I don't like doing the whole piling on players, individuals, and the reaction to Savinho's suggested involvement was maybe a bit over the top. But I think, Louis, my issue with that right now is, and we've said it all week, so kind of going over stuff we've already said, but I have no issue with Savinho being in the squad. I think second season, we can evaluate at the end of the year kind of where he's at, what level he is at, because, you know, you go back to when he arrived at City, there was talk that maybe you'd be getting loaned out straight away anyway, but he stayed with the squad, and, you know, I thought he had a decent enough first season. Second season, fine. My issue is that with it now is he's very clearly not in form, and, you know, fair enough, with some players with a proven track record and a little bit older and with more experience, you can play them through that form. But I almost feel like even as a profile of player, Savinho is someone who kind of relies on confidence and a bit of a hot streak to really get into his full swagger and his full sort of stride. He's very, very abundantly clear, and I'm very confident in saying this as close to a fact. He very clearly is not in form, and I think it's just harming him even more putting him out there in the firing line, because it just isn't working right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Pep plays him, I think that's poor management. Like you said, putting him in the firing line again. And yeah, I agree. I think he is a confidence player, and I think at some point, like Adam says, if not now, then when? At some point, he's going to have to get a string of games, because I think he's going to have some, you know, good form in a match to spark that confidence again. But yeah, I think surely Pep looks at this and looks at what's been happening with Savinho's performances and doesn't play him, because yeah, if he does play him, I think that's not a very smart decision at all for the player and for, you know, the team and the result.
Yeah. Adam, there's probably very little information we can gain from doing a deep dive on Leeds. You know, it's low block most likely. Players that will look to defend and counter-attack. We've seen this movie before. Any parting words ahead of what I quietly think is possibly one of the most important games of the season so far, because of what has kind of happened over the last week?
Yeah, and it's a shame that we had to sort of get to that point and how we got here. But you can't ignore the fact that some sort of disastrous result is absolute sky falling material, and panic button and alarm bells and whatever sort of buzz phrase you want to attach to it. But you can also, not that I tend to do this, you can also look at the positive side of it and say that there may not be a team in the Premier League you'd rather play at the Etihad in a week that you need to just pump somebody to get the blood rushing again.
Yeah, totally. Louis, anything else to add on top of that? Like we say, big. It's got to be a big performance. Result, who knows? You can't you've got to leave that up to the footballing gods sometimes. But I need a reaction. After midweek.
I mean, like Adam said, there's not a better team to do it. I think the fans were booing the players off against Villa, I think, at the weekend. Like they're not in a good place. So if we don't get a result here, yeah, the big questions need to be asked. It's definitely got to be 3 points. 3 points or nothing for me.
Yeah, I'm happy to conclude with that. Well then, Louis, thank you very much. A very strong debut. Maybe rotation does have its benefits.
I've absolutely loved it, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been great.
pleasure. All of Louis' links will be in the description of the episode. Adam, we'll let you go and do your Thanksgiving. Anyone to say thank you for?
You know, I think because he's been beaten with a stick all week, I'm going to say I'm thankful for Pep Guardiola.
What about your wife who's been doing the cooking?
Pep Guardiola.
And there's your lesson, everyone. Listeners, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sticking with us this week. We'll be back on Monday. Fingers crossed, saying thank you for a Manchester City victory. Until then, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you later.